Alright, I got a 2011 Polaris Ranger side-by-side in. Customer's main complaint is a noisy rear end. Looks like a rear axle transaxle combination. And you want some general maintenance done to it. I'll go for a little drive here, see if we can hear some of the noises coming out of the rear end. You can hear it over the engine. Engine's kind of loud. Parking brake. Fairly noisy. That's high gear, high range. You can actually hear what sounds like possibly a tooth missing out of something. Let's try reverse. That sounds really bad. We're definitely missing a tooth out of something. If we try low range, a lot noisier right from start. Almost wondering if let me turn this thing off. These side-by-sides are so loud. Makes a lot more noise in low range, though I'm not super familiar with whether they always make a lot more noise in low range, but so it's either something to do with the differential portion of it or the transmission, but it looks like I got to tear both of them apart to find out. I'm sure with a little searching on the internet I could probably find some answers too. There's probably maybe some common issues, but anyway, we'll get started on taking it apart. I probably should just buy all these different pullers for all these different clutches, but that would be too easy. And it would cost a lot of money. Inch. They don't appear to be Loctited, just the silicone sealant that was remaining went in there. It's probably 5/16 by 1.5 inches or so. All right, is that all the bolts? I believe so. I hate to start prying on something and not have all the bolts out. I would imagine one of these case halves is probably expensive. Oh, that was easy. Just find a couple of strong areas to pry apart. Sometimes these manufacturers put a little design in there where you can use a pry tool. That's always appreciated when it's engineered. That came apart easily. The bolts are all tight. I think there's a bearing in here that's sort of a slight fit. This is a shaft right on, so there might be a bearing half in here too. So we gotta maybe kind of gently work some of this stuff apart or tap it. It's coming. A few spare parts falling in there. Sure, that's normal. Let's see if we can tap this apart. Light tap. Nice to keep some of this stuff intact in there and see what's going on. Overall, that's not too bad. That's pretty easy. Oh boy, look at that. So our differential area looks good. Parking brake area shaft, first reduction maybe you'd call that, of your chain drive gear. Looks good, but that is destroyed. And all the balls, this is one of our cluster shafts, I guess I would call it. Yeah, I can see the shift fork works on this shaft, and the bearing is completely gone. Hopefully you can see that. I've driven around a little too long that way, but sometimes it's already too late to tell. Looks like the outer race is actually completely destroyed. The inner race is still there. You can see with the little groove in it. But it completely fell apart and busted the outer race, which is some pretty hardened steel. So that's bad. We're gonna need a case half. That's too bad. So that shaft, the small end of this shaft with the little bit of race on it actually looks like it's been riding up here for quite a while, just like rubbing on the case. That's amazing. Otherwise, the rest of it was probably working okay. Well, that's junk. I'll do at least, well, do a complete teardown and see what's left of everything. See if I can turn this a little bit. Trying to get a tripod to film it in such a way that it's not like in my way. Otherwise I'll just keep bumping it. That'll get annoying. Wow. I guess I can go right in the scrap bin. Take this spring off. That should release our, so that goes in like that. Just like that. To hold our chain tensioner. This looks like a nylon or nylon 66 or some kind of heavy duty nylon block is the chain tensioner. It looks like it's in the middle of this expanding, whatever you want to call it, ratcheting cam. So I would say, you know, in the middle is probably would tell me that the chain is still good. Obviously you can see right there, that's pretty loose. And the spring, as it wears, or rather as it stretches, causes it to reach the next tooth. That's where it was riding. Of course, there's a little deception here because this is not rigidly held in place, but that's about where they want it, I guess. The spring didn't want to bring it to the next one. I can manually bring it to the next one, but the spring did not, so let's say we're going to leave that. Pretty clever design. So I think we can bring this, if you want to call it differential or carrier, out. Okay. That rides on there like that. Looks like an actual kind of a differential lock. That's your diff lock, I guess. We'll wash this up and inspect it. Overall, it doesn't look too bad, except for right there. It took a piece of that. Right there, it definitely ran a piece of bearing race through there, probably. May not be the end of the world. Little glob of silicone. T27. Kind of firm, so I would say it's probably got some Loctite on it. Yeah, that's definitely Loctited. Take this out. Our spring sits like that. Just rubs against a little nub in the housing there. Oh, lots more stuff in here. This is just a flat washer. Torx 1/4 inch. More bearing parts. chain. Guess we'll wash that up and inspect it. Not sure what the parts that have been floating around in there did to it, but has some wear. Doesn't make a complete U banana though, so that's good. I think we'll just leave that bolt in there. There's no really reason to take it out. This I'll pop out once I lay the thing over. Looks like we'll get this plastic. Looks like some kind of an oil, a device to spread oil around as it gets thrown up there, maybe by the chain or whatever. I don't know. Oil distribution, possibly. Sure, it wouldn't be in there if they didn't need it. Small Torx T20. It's got Loctite on it too. Looks like that just kind of steadies itself in a hole in the housing. But I would guess that that catches oil and dumps it out these little spots here. And there's a hole there. I guess that's a hole. Yep, that must dribble onto. Looks like it dribbles on this upper chain. Little chain. Pretty clever. Yeah, let's see what else we could take out here. Shifter. We got some bolts down through here that retain the bearing of the other end of this. So got to go down through there. It's a long extension. And I'd imagine that's probably T27. Yep. T27. Oops. Slipped off. Again, like quarter 20 by 3/4 inch. All these, yeah, that's got Loctite on it too. That one's not that triangular shaped thread. Some of these are the triangular shaped thread. They're almost like a roll form tap. Like a roll form thread or something. It's sort of, I don't know if they were cutting threads as they went in. It's probably more like a locking device. Really turns hard. Just enough Loctite on there, I guess. That one definitely wasn't going to rattle itself out. It's in there somewhere. That one's still in there. Come on now. Tube all the way out, as they call it. It's very fine threads, but it's pretty clean in here. If it was dirty, we'd want to try to clean that out, remove anything that would be in there that could jam the threads. I'm just using a Phillips screwdriver the way you're not supposed to, but it works so well, so why not? Might just find one that fits in there a little better. Guess they don't really go in that well, or very much farther anyway. Time to work smarter, not harder. Let's go back to Old Faithful here. There's a specific tool for this, but sometimes I'm anti-tool, and that would be today. Just use what I have. There, snorkel shaft. Bearings and stuff feel pretty good actually, but nothing broken. I'm sure there'll be a setup procedure here. I'll have to use some gear marking compound or something to get that to mesh right in the center where it's been. Looks like it's meshing correctly. Right in the very center of the tooth. Well, I'm finally back on this Ranger project. It's been several months or so getting parts. It's really cold out today. It's like, it was minus 13 Fahrenheit this morning. And it's inauguration day, so I was like, well, I'm just going to work in the shop today. Kind of cleaned it up in there. Got a wound up getting a brand new transmission. So when I priced everything to repair the other one, the prices for the components it needed were like $1,750, and that did not include the bearings, because I thought the bearings are just generic. I wasn't going to price them through a parts website, so I just buy them somewhere, and probably the seals too. But $1,750 plus labor to put it back together, and I couldn't get all the parts. I couldn't get all the gears. One or two pieces was no longer available, which is weird because you can buy a new transmission, but you can't buy the parts individually. But stuff was so expensive that I just said, you might as well get a new transmission. I think it was $2,300. So I mean, by the time I went through the other one, and labor, and all you'd have is a patched together transaxle. So anyway, we're gonna throw that in there. There's other stuff to put back together. He was recommended that when you've got the transmission out, you might as well put in a new front prop shaft. So we got one of those. I don't know if the old one is bad or making noise. I don't remember. I didn't think it was, but oops. Anyway, that's a new prop shaft, part number. I don't know if that's blurry or not. It looks blurry to me, but 1332813. I got everything from this Leaders RPM. They were like, God, on a transmission, they were like $600 less than anybody else somehow. And I called them to make sure that price was good and what the availability was, and they said, yep, we can have it right away. So, well, within 5 to 8 days or something, because they have to order it from the factory. But we also needed the rear sway bar. This one's busted, and they're still waiting on that. So I said, just have them ship the other parts, and we'll get it back together. I can put that sway bar in later. So I don't know. We're still waiting on that. Otherwise, that was the only holdup. Got some rear wheel bearings to put in. Those are 3514635 spark plugs. Oil and filter. They recommend replacing the sealing washer. Rear brake pads. Got all the fluids. Yeah, there's my next project. Trying to get that pin out. And I kind of started on it, but it doesn't seem to want to move. Went back here and kind of locked the front prop shaft with a vice grip and another locking C-clamp type vice grip, hoping to keep it from rotating. Anyway, I'm going to wail on that and swear at it off camera because I really can't get a good view on it down there, so I'll get back to you. Oh, that's going to be fun to put it back in. Do we know how it came out? I think it was just lucky. Found some leaves. I imagine there's really anywhere else it can go up to the front end. We're going to find out. Actually, you can see through here. Okay. It's getting caught on the cross members every so often, so you kind of, these little things like this, kind of gotta angle it. But this is a lot easier job with the transmission out. Transmission back in place, it looks like a pretty miserable job. Laying just underneath. This is going to be fun. I got to get it back on there and lined up with the hole. My right hand in above the steering rack and pinion. Jam a number 3 Phillips screwdriver in the hole of the new shaft, and try to get it to come up and line up with the hole here. This is really, you'd think there'd be a better way, such as a removable skid plate, but evidently not. Okay, push up on the back of the joint a little bit. Okay, there it is. This, I just taped the new roll pin to the end of my roll pin punch, and I want to try to drive it in there, so wish me luck. Alright, we got the front prop shaft in. I wound up pounding the pin in. I did not get that on camera because I don't like people to see me cry. So I used a 4-inch brass punch, 4 inches long, and wailed on it on the bottom side underneath with a whatever 2-pound sledge thing, and it was really hard to get that roll pin in there. So I didn't want to go with the bolt because I thought it would probably sit loose or something, so rather it could be loose. I think that pin actually does a pretty solid job of kind of locking it, you know, the two together. Once it goes through the prop shaft outer hole, it gets really tight when it goes into the spline shaft of the front end. So yeah, not for the faint of heart, but it is doable. Put this back in, trying to remember where all the bolts go. We got, let me bring you in here because looking from a distance gets boring after a while. Yeah, kitty. He's kind of going to be in the way. So that one goes there. Basically, you got these four bolts that are somehow going to sit here, so I can get that. So got those two, which look like 10mm or 3/8. I'm not sure. These are 8mm or 5/16. These really long ones go up here, here, and here. This shortest one goes back down here. It's been a while, so just trying to refresh here. That one goes back there, and that's, I believe that's it to hold the thing in. So I think what I'll do too is put anti-seize on these, because I don't know, they came out, but the next time, who knows. Wheel bearings, I'm waiting for a greaser. I watched another good video by Crank It, and really knowledgeable guy, and he's like, yeah, the new bearings are fine, they come with grease in them, but they don't come with very much grease, and they come with cheap grease, so he says. But so I think I'll get the greaser tool, and we'll add some more, a little bit more grease. Of course, it's hard to tell. They should come pre-lubed from the factory, but you don't want too much grease. You need some movement in there for the grease to move, expand, contract, move around. Too little grease, too much grease, it can be a problem. But all right, probably should use a cherry picker for this, but we'll just do it this way. I'm sure that's good for the back. Actually, I don't think it's not that heavy. Gotta get this back on there before this transmission is completely in place. Hope you can see that. I know the sunlight is a little bright here, but it's the middle of January. I'll take any sunlight I can get here in Minnesota. Well, alright, I think it started. It's just tight. Shaft is in the spine. Yeah, still is, I guess. We gotta get everything lined up here. There. That's close anyway with the motor. Engine. Look at it. There. Just like that. Okay, that's the 4 mounting bolts that hold the transmission in place. I'll tighten those up now and start putting the other peripheral stuff on. Okay, now our parking brake goes on. Still in good working condition, as you can see there. Goes down in like this. Sort of like this. Gotta get this pad on the back side of the brake disc, so it's a little challenging here. Go up there and come back down to this hole here. That's our bolt right there. So we have to put Loctite on the bolts. Loctite 242, that's what's on there. As with always with blue Loctite 242, you have to shake the bottle real good. It's got some solids in there. That's not supposed to happen. That's a better idea. Push that up. Working. Your hose we can hook up. Alright, let's get our wiring harness hooked up. This one goes to the shifter position sensor. This one goes to, I'm assuming that's a Hall effect sensor for speed sensor, VSS, vehicle speed sensor. Let's see, we got one more. I'm gonna hook up our turf mode solenoid. That one too. Our turf mode solenoid here, I cannot get it to plug back into its harness from this this controller here, which is, this is the controller that I think what it does is it pulls it in with 12 volts and then it holds it with 3 volts. So this must modulate a lower voltage, and it doesn't reach. So I don't know, I remember unhooking it. Like the wires are too short. I'm thinking I might just cut this zip tie here, see how much more we need to get it connected. Maybe I can reconnect this controller in a little different spot or something. Kind of weird that the wiring is so short though. You know, I bet maybe this is a heat sink too. This probably has to be bolted to the chassis to dissipate some heat. Now if I go down to this lower hole, that would probably work. That's pretty good. Right there, that's not too tight. This is not too tight. There. Pivot bolt goes back in the bottom hole with the square. And then your bushing stays on there, a little black plastic bushing. Washer. And this little clip. There's high, low, neutral, reverse. Put the secondary on first. Okay, 17. Put our belt on the primary first with our lettering legible when standing from the side. Down there. Get it up in place here. Tilt it on. Our primary bolt needs a little bit of blue Loctite. Okay, 40 foot-pounds. Next we're going to replace wheel bearings. So we'll take our whichever snap ring pliers fits. Looks like the largest one. Sometimes they really fight, but that's a big snap ring, so. Alright, we got snap rings out. Next thing we're going to do is press the old bearing out. I just got an old spindle from an old mower of some kind here. There's the old bearing. Little anti-seize in here. Keep the bearings from getting completely stuck in there the next time. There we got new Polaris bearings. Like they're almost 60-70 bucks a piece. Got them from Leaders RPM. So they are a genuine bearing. Those, we'll press those in. Just use a piece of flat to start with. It's always better to press on the outside of the race, always, if possible, on a new bearing, rather than press on the inside race, because then you're just putting excess force on the bearing balls and everything itself. Found this seal driver laying around in my stuff that's just about exactly correct for the outside of the bearing race. It should fit pretty well to push from the outside. This is a, I don't know, this came from a transmission kit or something. It's an OTC T87C-1175A. Probably from a specific kit, but I don't know what that was. There's some stuff I got in an auction box. We'll get the snap rings back in place. like to make sure it's in place by tapping it with this hammer and a little punch. Yeah, that's solid. I want to grease the wheel bearings. I bought one of these Jensen Motorsports wheel bearing greaser for 40 millimeter. This covers Polaris ATV, UTV side-by-sides. It's pretty well made in Canada. It's a 1.002.003 part number. Comes with an extra O-ring and some instructions. Seems pretty well made. Got a relief here where the grease comes out and injects into in between the two bearing races into that little split in there. This has a little taper so that it fits in there, and then just put grease in here just like normal. I'll put a little smidge of grease on this O-ring. Goes in and stops right there. Yep, so what it does is it doesn't go in all the way. It goes in until it wedges the taper. You want to rotate it as you're putting grease in. Anything coming out the back yet? Nothing out the back. I saw burping there a little bit. Yep, now we're getting a little grease. This thing will put a lot of grease in all at once too, so I don't want too much. I don't want to blow all the seals out. Actually,